So viewer questions. The three viewers' questions are all from Melancholy Geek, a longtime fan, friend, and just great guy in general. So starting off, what games in the past, say 5 years? Okay, well that's right. Okay, let me try again. The way that is. Okay, what games in the past, say 5 years, surprised you with the way they handled their tutorials?
Okay, that person must have Jesus fucking Christ, they're really going back to be making a reference to tutorials. Fuck. The thing, I don't know, like I'm just thinking through like kind of like the last, this kind of sucks because, okay, so I haven't played, like the most recent game I played recently was Doom Dark Ages. That is not an example of a good tutorial in my mind. That's an example to me of like a game that is going more in the direction of not allowing the player to kind of seamlessly go through the problem that I had with it is that it's a type of tutorial that does not let you progress unless you do something exactly the way that they intended. So like it can't be, oh, you have parried this enemy attack and then shot them once to kill them. Like, no, you have to parry and then parry and then parry, and then we'll let you through because we're not entirely certain that you have got this mechanic in you. And I totally get it. Like I'm not giving this as like a id Software, you fucked up, how dare you kind of thing. It's more just that I've seen other games do this, and I find that it just doesn't seem to accomplish the goal that I think devs are intending, where I think it's essentially impossible to ensure that 100% of your player base are going to play the game exactly the way that you intend. Like, it is just a very, very difficult thing to go through. And this is also kind of something too that I have not also looked at the data on this, and this could also be what maybe has led to games taking this approach. If I'm somebody who has played FPSs before and I'm getting irritated about this tutorial sequence, but I keep going, and then people who ordinarily wouldn't play this genre then take this information way more to heart en masse, and you have the data that that's the case, then it is a worthwhile trade. You are only irritating a hardcore group of people who are going to play your game regardless in exchange for people who might not otherwise touch this genre at all. But that's the thing, is that all I know is my immediate instincts as a player, and all I know is that when I do something and it works, and then the game tells me, no, that was wrong, you can't do that, I instinctively get irritated, and I can't help that. So...
Yeah, because I have a similar feeling in regards to that as well. I personally am not a fan of most tutorials in video games, and I think that most video games absolutely fail at tutorializing things, mainly because of either that strict rule set of things that you have to do, where it's all so segmented and so slow that they have to go over every nuance of every little thing without any kind of player freedom to figure some of those things out in a free form kind of way. And a pretty good example is I think it was Callisto Protocol, for instance, tutorializes the melee combat 3 times in a row. It literally gives you a slow-mo, quick time event tutorial on how melee combat works. And then it does a pop-up box, and then it gives you one more opportunity to figure it out in real time. And I hate that there's 3 of them. The first one would have been perfectly fine, or even the third one would have been fine, right? One of those 2. But here's the other crazy part. It did it 3 times, which is annoying for majority of people, yet somehow people never figured out how it works at all. And that was one of the number 1 complaints about that game.
Well, so it's interesting you mentioned this, because I just played through that game actually relatively recently for the first time. I'm somebody who is not a Dead Space fan, so I was curious to go through Callisto Protocol because I wanted to know, hey, how does somebody who is not really into Dead Space, what would they think about all these changes to the core formula? And the weird takeaway with Callisto is that because I'm not a traditional Dead Space fan, as a result, the game kind of leveled out to be exactly kind of what I thought of Dead Space anyways, because the core of the game is so different, but everything else around it in terms of its presentation and its style and its pacing and even the way that people are directed is all so similar. And obviously because it's the same people. It's the same level designers,
Right.
it's the same directors, it's the same producers. So obviously it has that same feel, even though the core gameplay is so different. And yeah, one of the things that I didn't understand after the tutorial is that the tutorial made it seem like that if you don't time these dodging presses correctly, you get hit, because ordinarily dodging in games is based on timing. Except in Callisto, that's not how it is. In terms of your input as a player, it doesn't matter if the direction is correct. It doesn't matter if it's timed well. It only matters if you actually dodge. It only matters if an enemy is coming at you. Are you dodging left or right or backwards in the case of the hit forward? That's it.
Yeah, the opposite direction of their action. Yeah.
So it's like, it's the case of you're actually going into the system thinking it's more in depth than it actually is. And and there's this other thing I think that can happen with tutorials where. Well, no, sorry, just one more thing I want to add was that what Rollerdrome is, and this is actually a good example, I think, is that game, it essentially pauses right from the start. It basically says, hey, here's the fundamentals, and we're going to let you get the objective, but, we're not going to let you actually engage in a full level until you understand the core fundamentals. And then once it gives you that, it then subtly suggests things to you. It will give you an objective that says, hey, if you time this button press, you will get the super reflex mode, which it never overtly explains to you otherwise, but kind of calmly directs you towards. And there's two of you now. Whoa, no.
It'll only take one of them. It looks like my internet died for a second.
But like in Rollerdrome, it's really good about giving those fundamentals and then, steering you and guiding you. But at the same time, if you're completing levels and killing people, then you're succeeding at the game. You're going through. And if you don't care about getting S rank, then why should the game stop you from doing what's working?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. And I think like what you were saying with Callisto, ironically, people kind of thinking that it's deeper than it is. That initial like tutorialization of that quick time event is literally how it works. It's like they show this person's hitting you from this angle, go left. This person's hitting you from this angle, go right. And it's like literally that. And it's just like somehow that was missed. And that still blows my mind. But it was like, that it didn't say, hey, you gotta like time it perfectly. And even the pop-up window doesn't even say that. Like it never says you have to time it perfectly. So it was weird that people dug into it, but I guess it could be due to prior games and how dodging typically works. You'll play a Dark Souls game or something. You got to really be very specific, very precise. And then I was going to say, like, on the opposite end of that is like a game I've been playing a lot of, Atomfall. You start the game out and it gives you very little, like it gives you like, okay, shows you how to do a little bit of crafting and kind of like structure wise. And then when you walk out of this bunker, the game is like, okay, do whatever you want. It's kind of like walking out of Doc's place in Fallout New Vegas or something. It's just like you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. And there's bits and pieces of things that can give you direction if you choose to interact with them. Like there's a phone box that'll call you. It can give you a direction, but if you don't answer the phone, then you won't have that direction. I mean, there's another guy this way who kind of tell you, oh, there's a thing here, and you can do that. But if you don't ever talk to them or you just choose to shoot them, then you don't have that. So a lot of people are actually put off from the game because of its lack of direction.
Yes.
Which for me is something I love, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and the other thing kind of to add to that is that, it varies from game to game. There is no silver bullet solution that is going to, there's no mechanic or structure of game that is going to universally assist whatever game it might be. Like one of the things that I mentioned in terms of Doom games, which is just, a good example because it's, easy. A lot of people play those games. One of the things that always stood out to me is that I do really like Eternal and I really like 16. But the thing that always stood out to me was that 16, I could go in at any moment and put the game on ultraviolence or nightmare and be able to handle it. Whereas with Eternal, the initial hour of revisiting that game, I would always be fucking terrible. I would always be like, I have gone right back to square one. And then you put the pieces back together again. And then suddenly it's like, oh, literally me not using the flame belch. That alone is costing me death and levels. If you're not using that as freaking need to, if you're not using the chainsaw enough, you lose. And it's something that, you know, is not better or worse. It's just different. And it's going to be preferred for some people compared to others. And it's definitely not something that universally all games should do.
So on to question number 2. It is still in relation to the first question, which is
tutorials.
The importance of tutorials 10 years later. When?
Never, because that's a subject that's, you know, I feel like I said my piece on that. You know, I don't hold the opinion that Fallout 3 is a good example anymore. That's definitely, you know, not a current thing. I do think Titanfall 1 is still a very good example of a tutorial done well and efficiently quickly.
Fallout 3 is like something story-wise is cool, but tutorial-wise is such a very long and drawn-out thing.
There's no reason there shouldn't be a skip button in that game. There is zero reason that shouldn't be there.
It takes so long to get to the intro.
Yeah, and like also that actually in some ways kind of you know adds to the point, which is that I find a lot of times with video games, and this is something that actually one of the reasons maybe I don't have a lot to say about tutorials these days is that games in general, when it comes to tutorial and then the related subject to that accessibility, they've gotten way the fuck better about that. One of the great things about Doom Dark Ages is that it just essentially lets you customize every single component of the enemies that you face in that game. It's something that, you know, if there is a situation like if they ever were to have an equivalent of something like the Marauder, now you have an avenue of, hey, if this is a thing that for this specific group of people, they really don't like this enemy, well, now you can literally just enlarge their window, or you can lower their damage output, or whatever it is. Like whatever is the one little you know, kink in the armor that is the thing that you want to get rid of and address, now players can address those. I fucking hate rapid press I freaking hate rapid press QTEs, not because I can't do them, just because I find them fucking annoying. So even though it might be an accessibility option for people who can't do that, almost every video game I play, if there's an option to toggle that and just make it hold, I just do that.
Yeah. I have like a two-sided kind of, like, I feel like accessibility is like a double-edged sword. I feel like it's fantastic. I love that more people get to play games, and it's an awesome thing to have, but I also feel like in some scenarios it takes away from like how a game should be played, and it kind of takes away from the old school factor of learning how to play a game to get good at a game to actually finish a game, versus like, all right, I'm just going to turn all the sliders down to nothing, so now I can just walk through Dark Ages and I can just look at the enemies. I don't even need to fight them. You know what I mean? Like, it's
the kind of thing of, you know, like,
I've played several games that would do that.
It's the kind of thing of, you know, my kind of view on that is that I've never really seen a scenario where the accessibility options have been adopted by a big enough chunk of the user base that the core gameplay loop is not being engaged with on the whole yet, you know, and kind of until that sort of situation kind of, maybe there is an example where that's happened, but like, you know, the reason for, you know, the elephant in the room, a game like the Soulsborne games go through this conversation. The thing that makes the discourse kind of so tedious is that it's not even actually about difficulty. It's just about like the reason From Software, as far as I understand, the reason they do that is for the shared world experience, so that everybody is playing the exact same game, so that, and that's one of the reasons that it becomes so popular on stream and why there's such community. It's not even specifically to do with difficulty. The game could be universally easy. And I think there's even been cases where people have gone through a certain Soulsborne type of games and gone, yeah, this isn't interesting to us because of XYZ or this boss or whatever. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that
Death Stranding has a similar take on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess allowing the community to be the accessibility for people who are struggling, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so it's like, it's something that, like I said, it's, you know, there's very few things in the industry that are, you know, like for silver bullets. And it's just a thing of like, for accessibility options, a lot of those are probably the closest thing that there are. Because, for instance, it doesn't matter what type of game that it is. Somebody with a red-green color blindness being able to see things, that just universally kind of helps them. You know, there's not really... Right. I'm sure there is. I'm sure somewhere, you know, somebody can make a specific game where it says, hey, red and green needs to be in here. If you can't see it, go fuck yourself. And you know what? More power to them. You know, that game can be its one particular thing. But like, you know, that's those are always there's always exceptions to the overall rules.
Yeah, of course. So Melancholy's question number 3 is, have you ever thought about doing X years later videos on your own videos?
Yes. The main one that I've thought about was Halo Reach, because that is a video that if you go back to it, it has like a completely even or slightly to dislike ratio of like, you know, dead half, where people love it or hate it. And there's various reasons for that. One, not a very good video. But two, it's also, that was very much in the portion of when I was starting out and very much kind of trying on styles like the way that a teenager tries on clothes, you know, kind of like, oh, this one I'm going to be more Charlie Brooker. This one I'm going to be more Jimquisition, whatever. And that was the one that was definitely much more inflammatory and much more, this sucks, this is, you know, good or whatever. And the problem that I have with that style, one, I just don't think I like it very much. But then also two, the thing I don't like about that video is that if you do not like Halo Reach, you just 100% agree with it. And if you love Halo Reach, you just 100% disagree with it. And there's very little in between there. I've always said that I don't care about being liked or people agreeing with me, only that they understand. And the component of that is that if you are, that you're the one making this piece, you're the one making the arguments, you are the ones that are initiating this one-way conversation. And in that environment, you need to reach out to the audience. You don't need to cater to them. You don't need to do things that they request, but you need to be writing it with them in mind. You need to make sure that the arguments you're making are easy to comprehend and to make sense of. And after that video, I don't particularly care for either Sam Harris or Neil deGrasse Tyson, but there is a fantastic video out there of the two of them talking. And it was Neil essentially saying to Sam, hey, Sam, when you are making these very pointed arguments and using these strong words, you have to understand that even though you're writing this for academics, you are releasing it to the public. And so you understand then that in the zeitgeist, the word natural means good. You know this. You know that that's what people are going to interpret. So you can't get mad when they misinterpret that, because you're writing that with that knowledge in mind. You know, he referenced that, you know, in basketball, if you pass the ball and your teammate doesn't catch it, it's your fault, 100%. Because you should not have set up a scenario where that was even a possibility. And I very much took that to heart. And the Halo 4 video, a game that is way more controversial than Halo Reach is, didn't have nearly that type of disparity. So I think it did work out in the end. The reason to go back and maybe make a years later on it one day is not to fix it. It's not to see as, oh, I regret what was done there. I don't like the video and I have my problems with it, but it is what it is. And I learned a lot from it that I wouldn't have otherwise. The reason to go back and do it now is that I think there's a story opportunity there. There's a way to give a take on Halo Reach that is both more in detail and more respectful and credible to the developers, while then also giving a personal take that wasn't there previously.